There's a lot to speak about in this week's PARSHA. I decided to speak about only a few words in the PARSHA. And somewhere towards the end of the PARSHA, there's a famous halacha of L'savashal Gedi B'chalev Imoy. You're not allowed to eat Gedi B'chalev Imoy. You're not allowed to eat a goat with its mother's milk. From there we learn the Issa of Basar B'chalav. So I picked on a topic of Basar B'chalav, which is not a well-known halacha, but it's a very, very common halacha. So there's a Gemara that speaks about in Chulun, that's Kufit Beis and Aleph. The Gemara says, Boy b'nei Avdimi min Rav Nachman. Avdimi asked Rav Nachman, Ma'al v'anuchei kada de milcha gabe kada de kimcha. Are you allowed to put a thing of a bucket of milcha, of salt, gabe kada de kimcha, which is kimcha was milk. It was something made out of milk. It was like a milk. It wasn't cheese. It was made with bread, with a moldy bread and milk. It was a sharp food they had in those days. It was called kimcha. So the challenge is you're allowed to put salt next to this milcha tafshil. Keep it next to each other.
Like in the same cupboard.
In the same cupboard, the same table.
Mm-hmm. And
so
the problem will be?
So he says, Amalei Osir. You're not allowed to do it. Then he asked him, we'll get to the reasoning why. Then he said, the Chaldamai, are you allowed to put this kimcha, this milchiga thing next to vinegar? Amalei Shari. That's mutter. That you're allowed to do. Umayshna. So he says, Hai Isa Isur Be'enai, V'hai Leisa Isur Be'enai. One, the Isser is Be'en, and one, the Isser is not Be'en. Rashi explains what does it mean. By kimcha was a thick thing. So Yecheshish, that some of the kimcha, the milchiga dish, whatever it was, would end up in your salt. Because you would use salt during the Suda. Some of that kimcha will end up in the salt. And there'll be a piece of that milchiga thing in the salt. Little pieces. And then
you're talking about an open salt.
Open salt thing. We're not talking about salt shaker. So when you eat the kimcha, and then you dip it into the salt. So what's going to happen is, if you dip it into the salt, you may have some of the milchiga kimcha in the salt. Then you go ahead and dip your fleishiks into it, and you'll end up having milchiks in your fleishiks. That's why you're not allowed to do it. But challah, vinegar is mutter. Why? Because even if it falls in, some of the milchiga thing falls into the challah, into the vinegar, it becomes liquid, and it dissolves into it. So now it's bottle in the vinegar. So now what do you have in the vinegar? You have a little bit of milchiks in the vinegar, but it's already bottle. What are you worried about? You're going to add that to your fleishiks. Doesn't make a difference. It's already bottle. Even though you're going to add milchiks to your fleishiks, it's already bottle.
But even kimcha is not cooking.
It's not cooking, but it's be'en. So you end up taking some salt with some
milchiga crumbs.
Milchiga crumbs in it, and you put it into your fleishiks.
We put it together, but so far from the text what we read,
not cooking.
Only talks about
eating
cooking.
No, not even cooking.
Not eating.
Not cooking.
It's on the table.
No,
it's on
salt.
the same table.
You have salt, you have kimcha, you have a milchiga dish, and you use the salt for the milchiks.
Yeah, but the passage that we start with talks only about cooking. It doesn't talk about... Right.
Yeah, Lachami.
We didn't talk about anything else.
Yeah, Lachami. This is not a deraisa. If you go ahead and you end up putting the milchiks and fleishiks together, is it issa deraisa or not? Probably not. Unless it's cooked together. Right, the issa bishlam or deraisa is only cooking. So that's what the Gemara says. So therefore, if you want to put the salt next to the kimcha, it's fine. You want to put the salt next to the vinegar, next to the kimcha, that's fine. The salt you can't do. And the vinegar you could do. Why? Because the vinegar, if it goes in, it will dissolve and become batal b'shishim. And mashakim goes into the salt, it's going to stay pieces. And you end up putting those pieces into your flesh. Oh, so the question is there shishim in the vinegar? So Rashi doesn't say the shishim in the vinegar. Rashi says, Avol kutach hanoifel b'chaymitz leise be'ein, it's not there. V'tamo nami lo yohev kutach b'chaymitz. Rashi says the kutach doesn't even give taste into the vinegar. So Rashi is mashma that even when it's in the vinegar already, there's already no taste of the kutach. So now you're going to add it to the fleishiks, you don't have to worry about it.
So
The Masha from Rashi.
Like a Tam Gam situation. It's kind of like that though.
I don't know if that's how maybe there's always shishim. You worry about a little bit.
It doesn't give tam, he said.
The kutach doesn't end up, maybe it's not enough to give tam. Let's say why.
Okay.
Because it's not enough. What do you worry about? A drop of kutach fell into you. But if let's say there is enough kutach in the vinegar and it gives tam, maybe then it's awesome.
Rashi's not saying that the metzias is that kutach does not give tam into vinegar ever. Right. He's just saying in the case that we were talking about, there was no tam.
Doesn't give tam.
So
enough.
I think Rashi means shishim.
Well, I think Rashi means the shishim. That's what I think. So you don't have to worry about it. And this is halacha we spoke about it once, that if you have milk in water, let's say, and it's bottled with shishim, there's no problems to go add it to fleishiks afterwards. You don't have to worry about it. Because already bottled with shishim beforehand. So that's the Gemara. Now this is talking about using milk of a thing with salt. The common child is with the ketchups and the mustards and these type of things. Our salt shakers say that you shake. It's not really an issue. Because you're shaking it, it's not touching, it's not coming in contact with the food. But the problem is when you have kids and you have ketchup bottles, you have mustard bottles, and the kids have a tendency, you think the closer it is to the food, the more comes out. So they end up sticking it into the food. Then it could be, you have to be careful. You have to worry about maybe some milchiks on the ketchup container and then use it for fleishiks. So anything that gets in close contact with food, you have to be careful. Unless it's liquid and it becomes bottled inside. So that's the Gemara. So Tais brings out a similar shaila. Am I allowed to have fleishiks and milchiks together next to each other? Till now we spoke about milchiks and salt, milchiks and vinegar. How about fleishiks and milchiks? Could I have fleishiks and milchiks next to each other? Or do I have to worry that the fleishiks and the milchiks will end up in each other? So from the worry, see, you are worried that the kutach will end up in the salt. You are worried the kutach will end up in the vinegar. But vinegar becomes bottle, salt not. But if you have milchiks and fleishiks, even if it becomes bottle, you can't do that. So you'll let have milchiks and fleishiks together, let's say, in the same place where you're chayshish, that the milchiks will end up in the fleishiks, and the fleishiks will end up in the milchiks.
On the kitchen counter.
On the kitchen counter. The chatchila, you let it.
You can't be in bottom of the chatchila.
Right, you can't be bottom of the chatchila.
So why is it different than with the kutach and the...
Because the kutach, it's bottled before it gets to the fleishiks. So they bottle in the chametz. Yeah, but it's in the chametz. It's bottled in the chametz before it gets to the fleishiks. You're right. This is a different child. If you look at chila, add a little bit of milchiks to water to add it to your fleishiks. That could be not. Here you're not doing that. Here it's exera. It may end up in your vinegar. Once it's in the vinegar, it's bottled.
In the case of the Gemara, though, the reason it comes up, I think, is because it's a common thing to take the kutach and dip it in the salt, right? So that makes an issue now. And if you're just keeping a grilled cheese sandwich
next to
and your chicken sandwich from the day before on the counter.
Okay, good. Right. We'll get there. What's the next? What are we saying about challah?
Challah is not enough of that slice of challah on your shalom table.
Yeah. You can't
keep challah on your table. You keep challah on the table. You just have to know that it becomes challah that you can't do with melching anymore.
Right.
It's not that it's altered.
You're saying why is the salt? Look, the salt you're using. You're right. You're right. Allah says if you have a milchik or salt thing that you only use for milchiks and a chlami, it's not a problem. You have to be careful. Here it's only you use the same salt, but challah, if you're saying you're using the challah, but you're being careful, this challah you're only using for fleishiks, then the chlami it's better. But if the salt, the problem is you would use the salt for fleishiks also. So this was also to keep it next to each other. So Taisa speaks about how about milchiks and fleishiks? Could you do it or not? So Taisa says, he brings a raya from Gemara and Avodah Zarah, that Goyish food and Jewish food, you don't have to worry about when they're next to each other. Why? Because Taisa L'chari is learning that the only problem over here is that you're going to use the kutach with the salt. Therefore, some kutach may end up in the salt. But let's say you're not using them together. It's Goyish food and Jewish food. Right? It's treifin food and kosher food. You're not worried that they're going to, by mistake, end up in each other. By kutach, you're using the salt together with the kutach. But fleishiks, but goyish food and Yiddish food, you have nothing to worry about.
How
Says
does
therefore,
get on your table.
Clean lady.
You see a clean lady, or you're sitting in an airplane. Let's say the guy next door to you was eating his non-kosher food. So he says by goyish food you're not worried about it. So he says it's the same thing as by milchiks and fleishiks. If there's a milchik food and fleishik food next to each other, there's no issue and nothing to worry about. Why? Because you're going to be careful. You're going to make sure they don't come in contact. Like kutach and salt, it's the opposite. You want them to get together. You want to use the salt with the kutach. By milchiks and fleishiks, where you bedafka separating them. Therefore, it says taisvis and milchiks and fleishiks, there's no problem, and you keep them together, and there's no chash. There's a famous question if you could have a milchik soup and a fleishik soup on the stove top at the same time. Right? According to there's no problem. Because you're careful. They're not going to end up mixing each other. Why should they mix together? So you have a milchik soup on one fire and a fleishik soup on the next fire. The shouldn't be a problem. But we'll see that even that the Mashal brings down from Rishonim that argue on Taisvis, and they say that even though by goyish food you're not choishes and come next, it's going to mix together, by milchiks and fleishiks will machmer. By milchiks and fleishiks you cannot put them together in the same place because they may end up in each other. Goyish food maybe you're more machmer on it. Possible cholov, it's everything that's mine. I don't stay away from the basar and the cholov. I may stay away from them together, but I'm not staying away from each one. By goyish food, the goyish food you're staying away from. You have no shaykhis to it. By basar and cholov, you have shaykhis to both of them. So maybe they'll end up together. So Mashal asks it. And the Mechaber brings down in Simin Tzadihei, Ein menichin kli sheyesh by kutach et a kli sheyesh by melech. You're not allowed to put a kli that has kutach in it next to a kli that has salt in it. But the eitzel chaymitz is mutter. Only if they're uncovered. If they're covered, it's mutter. But mutter litim b'teich teva kad shel basar eitzel shel chalav. You're allowed to put milchiks next to fleishiks in the same box, and you don't have to worry about it. Says the Ramah Haga v'yesh machmirim lechatchila v'toiv l'zar lechatchila b'mokum she'enei toiv. Says the Ramah, you should be machmir. If you want to put a milchik thing and a fleishik thing in the same box, you should be machmir. So the Ramah comes out l'chumra, milchiks or fleishik should not be in the same container, the same box. So the shaila comes, you go to the grocery and you buy milk and you buy meat and you would put them all in the same bag. Are you allowed to put them all in the same bag or not? So the truth is, if it's wrapped well and it never leaks, it's not a problem. But if milk has a tendency of leaking, and meat may have a tendency of leaking from the packaging,
or the holes in the bag,
or there's holes in the thing that's packaged with, it's wrapped around the meat, it could be an issue. You can't put the milk and the meat in the same bag, because they may end up leaking and go again one into the next. And the same thing is the refrigerator. If you have a refrigerator, you store your milk and your fleishiks, and milk has a tendency to leak sometimes or spill, and you have tins with chicken or meat, and sometimes it can spill. If they're not covered well, then it's an issue. So if you put stuff in your refrigerator, you have to make sure everything is covered very well. Because if it's not covered well, it's very possible that you'll have milchiks falling in the fleishiks, especially if you have the tins and it's covered with foil. The foil opens up very easily, and that's not called wrapped well. According to the Ramah, tzarach l'zar lechatchila, not to keep milchiks and fleishiks in the same place.
So if let's say you open up your fridge, and you would never do this, but let's say your children ate something, like they ate some meat from they put it back in uncovered.
Right.
And there's lots of other milchiks up in there too.
You have to be chayshish. You have to be chayshish.
That's a bidiyah of a situation.
Yeah. You have to be chayshish. Right.
Yeah.
Unless
you see that there was a spill. Unless you see there was a spill.
Yeah. If you see there's a spill, it's a serious issue.
Yeah. Right. But if there's no spill, you just.
There's no spill. You don't have to be chayshish that it spilled onto the chicken. There's a Mishnah that says a few blocks before that. A person's allowed to wrap up cheese and meat in the same handkerchief. As long as they're not touching each other. But you're allowed to wrap up chicken and cheese in the same handkerchief. Just make sure they're not touching each other. Now what's the chiddush? They're wrapped well? What's the Mishnah talking about? You're allowed to wrap up chicken and cheese together as long as they're not touching each other.
This is chicken, it's not meat.
No, even meat. Basar it says. Basar, even meat.
Even if not wrapped.
Oh, so how do you learn the Mishnah? If it's wrapped well, then what's the chiddush? Elamai, you can say the Mishnah is saying even if it's not wrapped well. So then why are you allowed to do it? So you're allowed to do it, why? Because we're not choshish, even though it's not wrapped well, maybe we're not choshish that they're going to touch each other. So that's a big question how we learn this Mishnah. According to the Ramah, this Mishnah should tell us that it has to be wrapped well. Because if it's not wrapped well, according to the Ramah, if you have things that are together, and there's a chash, maybe they'll touch each other, it's awesome. So how does the Ramah going to learn the Mishnah? So it's interesting, there's a Teres Chaim on this Mishnah, Achred from a couple of years ago, and he learns the Mishnah like this. The Mishnah says, "Say Adam, not wrap it together." Two people don't know each other, are allowed to eat milchiks and fleishiks on the same table. Why? Because they're not choshish, they're going to eat from each other. It's mutter. That's what the Mishnah says. So this is Teres Chaim. What's the hemshech? What does the first part of the Mishnah have to do with the second part of the Mishnah? Says the Teres Chaim, Seir Adam, Basar Gvim Pachas Achas. The chiddush of the Mishnah is what? That you're allowed to wrap cheese and meat together, and we're not choshish that you're going to eat them together. We're not choshish, you're going to unwrap it and go ahead and eat them together. And then the end of the Mishnah says the same thing will apply if two people are eating together on the same table, one milchiks or one fleishiks, and they don't know each other. Also, there's no chash they're going to eat from each other. So Teres Chaim says the chiddush of the first part of the Mishnah is Seir Adam, you're allowed to wrap cheese and meat together. It's talking about it's wrapped very well. There's no chash that they're going to touch each other. So what's the chiddush of the Mishnah? The chiddush of the Mishnah is that you're allowed to do it, and we're not choshish, you're going to come and eat them together. That's what the Teres Chaim says. The problem is, if you look at halacha, it says not that way. It's Shemot the Aleph, and it brings down this halacha. Says the Mechaber, I read to the Mechaber, I see every word in the Mechaber is accurate. He says, Mutter lotzer oisam b'met pachas achas. It says, Basar g'mir shenogel zeh b'zeh is mutter if you wash it off. Or mutter lotzer oisam b'met pachas achas. You're allowed to wrap them together in one wrapping. Says the Mechaber, V'loi chashinon shemo yigu zeh b'zeh. And we're not choshish, they'll touch each other. That lashon of the Mechaber is not like the Teres Chaim. He's saying you're allowed to wrap it together. He's learning the chiddush of the Mishnah is not that you're not going to eat it together. According to Teres Chaim, we should say you can wrap it together. The Mechaber doesn't say that. He says you're allowed to put them together, and you don't have to worry about that they're going to touch each other. I mean, it's possible they could touch each other. They're not wrapped that well that they cannot touch each other. They're wrapped well enough. You don't have to be choshish that they're going to touch each other. So it's a whole different halacha then. Now, what does the Ramah say about this? What's the Ramah say about this Mechaber? The Ramah says we're always choshish that chicken or meat and milk that are together in the same cupboard, that they can touch each other. So is he arguing in this halacha or not? Over here, he doesn't say anything, the Ramah. He's quiet. It's similar to the hay, where it says you're allowed to put in one teva, in one place, meat and milk together. Says the Ramah, no, v'yesh machmirim, b'tayvu zar. You have to be careful. Here, it doesn't say anything. So what's the chiluk between the two halachas? Why should the Ramah over there argue, and over here it keeps quiet? So I think the Chai Adam was bothered by his kasha. Now, I'm not going to say I have a clear teretz. I'll read the Lashon of Chai Adam. Chai Adam says like this: Omuter lotzer basar gvina, ha'isiv v'hetem et pachas achaz zeh b'tzad zeh v'lo chashin Hashem yigal zeh b'zeh. That's the mechaber. V'chein muter litein b'teva b'tachteva achas kachel basar as a kachel cholov. You're allowed to put the same. If you read the Chai Adam, it's mashma, same halacha. The same mechaber that says over here that's mutter to wrap cheese and meat together. The same mechaber over there that says you're allowed to put a kachel basar as a kachel cholov. Over there the Rabbi argues. It says like this: "Hey, mutter litem v'tachteva achas kachel basar as a kachel cholov. The mizeh zehiri sh'layipol zeh mizeh. Be careful they shouldn't fall in one to the next. Umekamakim im hey megulim. If they're uncovered, toiv lizar lechatchila b'makom she'ein etzarich, kivin she'ein davar ha'mafsek b'neihem. Ma she'ein kein lotzer b'met pachas, tafilu lechatchila mutter. So the Achtin Chayad was trying to answer the Ramah. Why the Ramah over here is in Machmer and Tzadi Aleph not? So I think what we're trying to say is the Ramah over here is saying that it's also when they're uncovered. Two things next to each other in the same box, uncovered is a problem. Even in the same refrigerator, uncovered is a problem because they may spill. In the metpachas, you wrap them up. If it's wrapped, each one separately, to worry about them, maybe they're going to touch each other. Then you don't have to worry about it. That's what the Chai Adam L'Chayr is saying. Uncovered, you have to be chayshish. If it's covered, but you're worried that maybe it's going to uncover and touch each other, then you don't have to worry about it. The question is, what's the difference? Both of them, the way it is now, it's fine. One's uncovered, you're worried they're going to end up, they're going to spill, whatever, come one into the next. And one you're worried it's going to get uncovered and touch each other. For some reason, if it's covered, then it's not a problem. So, come on, according to the Chai Adam, if you want to put milchis and fleshis in the same bag and carry it home from the grocery, it shouldn't be an issue. How you should worry that maybe it's going to leak, maybe it's going to uncover, but if you want to keep in your refrigerator milchis and fleshis, both of them are uncovered or not covered well, then according to the Ramah, it could be it's awesome.
And the pachas is considered covered well?
The pachas is possible. The pachas is possible for it to touch each other. L'chashina, you're not worried that they are going to touch each other.
Because it's covered well.
Because it's covered well. Yeah. The question is what it means covered well. If you have milk that leaks sometimes, what's the exact get there that's called that you don't have to be chayshish? I don't know. But it definitely says if it's wrapped and it's covered, then you don't have to be chayshish, it's going to uncover and touch each other. If it's uncovered and it's in the refrigerator, then it's asur. So to keep two things, milchiks and fleshis, uncovered or partially uncovered, they're not covered well, it's asur. This shadow is very negay in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael they have the milks, the bags of milk that you cut open the edge, and it stays uncovered. If you clip it shut, there's some people who always clip it shut. If you don't clip it shut, that milk is called uncovered milk. It's called megula. You put that in your refrigerator, you can't keep any milk, fleshly thing, even partially uncovered. Because the milk, our milks maybe is called covered. Our milks that are sealed, they're probably called covered. But in Israel, I wouldn't call the milks covered. That could be the problem.
The flesh could be covered.
Yeah, it has to be covered well. But every time you put flesh into the refrigerator, it's covered well. Especially if you have tins, and a lot of times it's not covered well. So according to the Ramah, it'll be asur. If it's not covered, or if the silver foil is off, it's called uncovered, then it's asur.
Is Ramah referring to both of them uncovered or just one?
Both of them uncovered.
Both of them.
Both of them uncovered. Yeah.
So if I have the bag of milk cut,
yeah, So us, you have by us in our houses here, how often do we have that both of them are uncovered? Most of the time, if your chicken gets uncovered, but you want to have something milchis uncovered. So most of the time, one of them is covered. And at Yisrael, basically always your milk is uncovered.
You see the same halachic standards.
What do you mean?
Before Pesach, coming home from the grocery store.
Carrying the same thing, you mean?
Yeah.
It could be worse.
Because of Chumrah Pesach.
Chumrah Pesach. By Pesach, you're buying chametz and Pesach things at the same time. You keep it in the same bag. It could be worse because it's not even bottled. It happens on Pesach, it's not even bottled. That could be even worse. Why is the millions we don't do that? Millions you put them in separate bags. When you're shopping before Pesach stuff or the chametz stuff usually are in separate bags. But the most famous shaila is, which I'm trying to find the heter for it, is uncovered pots on the stove. Now, what happens is, according to Tosfos, there's nothing to worry about. Because it's milchiks and fleishiks, so according to the Mechaber, there's nothing to worry about. So the Mohel says that you have to be makpid. If they're both uncovered, he says you can't keep them next to each other. So the chayot should be the same thing if it's on the stove. Right? You shouldn't be able to keep uncovered pots, milchiks and fleishiks next to each other.
Wasn't there always an issue? Isn't there an issue if they're heated up next to each other? If you're cooking, it's a plate and things are spritzing and it hits the pot.
That's a shaila.
I thought that was an issue.
Right, so that's a shaila spritzing. Shaila spritzes and it goes into the pot. That should be an issue.
But I thought also hitting the pot.
Hitting the side of the pot, also an issue. These things could be an issue. If it's spritzing, it could be a problem. So what's the heter? So a lot of people are talking makbid not to have it because of the Shemot. Uncovered. If they're both covered, that means you can't have one uncovered, the other one uncovered at the same time, according to Mavshornat. If they're both covered, then it's fine. But even then, what's called covered, if it's cooking and it spritzes out, then it's not a portion that's called covered, even according to the Ramah. And you may have to be machmer. But it could be there's a heter. Because what are you worried about? We're worried that it's going to spritz and go into the fleishiks. The spritz and milchiks go into the fleishiks go into the milchiks. The whole Gemara here says the whole chashash is what? In which case? When you have kimcha going into salt, you have something that's thick that it goes into the salt. It's still be'en in the salt, right? Then you're going to take that and add it to your fleishiks. So you have be'en now. By chola, by vinegar, the Gemara says it's mutter. Why is it mutter? What's happening? I'm having something going into my vinegar, and in the vinegar it's melted, it disintegrates, whatever, it mixes in with the vinegar, and now it's bottled. And now that may end up in my meat, it's fine. That ends up in my meat, it's fine. There's nothing to worry about. Therefore we don't make exerim. The only exerim is you're going to have be'en. Spritzing, what are you worried about? Have a little bit of milk spritzing onto your fleishiks. And then what? And what's going to happen when it spritzes onto your fleishiks? You're going to have milk and fleishiks together? No. It's going to become bottle. It's going to become bottle. That spritz of milchiks into your fleishiks is going to become bottle. Who says b'chayshish in the case where it becomes bottle? What are you going to say? That you're now going to make Issa l'chatchila. I'm mevatel Issa l'chatchila. I'm mevatel fleishiks and milchiks. So for that, there's a truth of kivega. And it could be I said it once here before, but it's a very important shuvah to know. The kivega says like this. It was a big shout in those days. They used to make milk. How did they make milk? How did they make cheese? So the way they used to make, say they have synthetic stuff, but the way they used to make cheese was they would take the stomach of the animal, they had some rennet, whatever it was, and they would put it into the milk, and then it would make cheese. The problem is it's possible cholov. You're putting fleishiks into milchiks. So how are you allowed to do it? So they used to dry it out and it would become hard like wood, like eight, the Mishnah says, and then if it's like eight, so it's not really basar, so it's mutter. So Rabbi Kiva wants to say that anyway it's mutter. Why is it mutter? What's the halacha of Eim Vatal Isla Lechatchila? Eim Vatal Isla Lechatchila is I have Isser, I have, let's say, something that's a treif, and I want to add it to a soup. I add it to the soup, it's batal b'shishim, it's mutter. Lechatchila, I can't go ahead and add it to my soup to be mevatel it. Fine.
But a guy could do it.
A guy also can't do it for you. A guy can't do it for you.
Not for you, but a guy
if the guy did it himself, and you have it in afterwards, it could be it's mutter. But if a guy's doing it to sell, the could be doing it for you, that's a whole different shaylas. But that's regular issue. If you have meat and milk, is there issue here? Do I have issue now? I have a little bit of meat, a big vat of milk. Do I have issue and heter here? The meat that's going into the milk, is the meat issue going into heter? No. When you take meat and milk together, and you cook them, it becomes asr. When does it become asr? Only if there's less than shishim in the milk. It means you don't have shishim in the milk connected to the meat, you add them together, now you have basar b'chalav. But let's say I have shishim in the milk. There's 60 times the milk connected to the meat. And then I add the meat to the milk. Did I do anything wrong? Why?
It's not recognizable.
Huh?
It's going to be recognizable.
No, it's a drop of meat into a whole thing of milk. Not a piece of meat. Chicken soup, whatever it is. A liquid. I'm taking a drop of liquid meat and I'm adding it to milk. Is there anything wrong with doing that? Is that called mevatlan issa lechatchila or not? Chariyah. So you know. You're not doing mevatal issa. The issa never starts. By basar b'chalav, you take a little bit of meat and you add it to a big vat of milk. It never became basar b'chalav. In order for it to become basar b'chalav, you have to have less than 60 of milk and meat. Now it becomes basar b'chalav. But if you're adding a drop of meat to a big vat of milk, says the Kiva, that drop of meat never became asr basar b'chalav. The whole issa basar b'chalav only starts when there's less than shishim. If there is shishim and you add a drop of meat, so what are you worried about? Says the Kiva, it should be mutter. It should be mutter to add a drop of meat into a big vat of milk. And it's not called ein mevatlin issa lechatchila. It's not called it being mevatlin issa lechatchila because the issa never started. You never started with an issa. It was mutter the whole time. You never made an issa. Says Rabbi Kivega, it should be mutter. The Maaseh says you don't do it, whatever the reason is.
But that's what the expression means. That's exactly what it means.
No, mevatel is when you
don't have an issa and you.
No, mevatel issa means when you have an issa, you already have an issa. You can't be mevatel it. But if I'm doing things together that doesn't create an issa, who says I can't do it? A drop of meat with a big vat of milk never creates an issa, right? You never created an issa.
Only you say let's say it's only in 30 parts of milk, and now I'm adding milk.
That's a problem. If you put a meat into a little bit of milk, and then you want to add more milk, you already created issa. Then you want to mevatel the issa. We're talking about if you have a big vat of milk and you're dropping in a drop of meat. So you never created the issa lechatchila. So the Kiva different want to say when they add the meat, the stomach of the animal, the rennet to the milk to make the cheese, here's it sad to be matter it. Because it's not mevatel lechatchila. There's never an issa to begin with. Now that we see over here by challah, if you have vinegar and there's kutach, a little bit falls in, we're not chayshish that it falls in, then you add it to your meat. Why? Because it's bottle. Only when there's be'en, it was there a chashash. When you have kutach falling into salt, there's a be'en, now you add that to meat, it's be'en, then we made an issa. But when there's no issa, for example, a little bit of your kutach falls into the vinegar, where you never created an issa, and then you're adding it to your meat, then we don't make the gzera, because it's already bottom. It could be spritzing is the same halach. When a little bit of your flesh of the chicken soup spritzes into the milchiks, what do you worry about? So you cause an issa? You never cause an issa. It's bottled right away. It's bottled b'shishim, it's mutter. There's no issa. What are you saying? Don't do it because you may be making an issa by mistake. You're not doing that either. It's bottled right away. Second it comes in, it's bottled b'shishim. So according to Rabbi Kiva, it's bottled b'shishim right away. So it could be spritzing, but also you don't have to worry about even spritzing. Maybe. Chiddush? I'm not sure all parties will agree to that, but it could be that if you have milchig thing and a fletching thing on the same fire, and of course if you see it spritzing, you know it's going to spritz, you definitely should be careful. No question about it. But for a chashash of spritzing, there maybe it could be meichel.